What's going on, everybody? We are going to go over everything BRRRR today. I get asked all the time, hey, how do you look for BRRRRs? Does BRRRR still work? Everybody's saying it's dead, it doesn't work. And in true form, I did the exact opposite of what everybody said. I said, let's hit the BRRRRs hard. I said in 2025, I was going to get $1 million in profit from the BRRRR method and a $500,000 in equity gain. That was my goal for 2025 that I set out for myself. And as of June, we are at $652,000 in profit, tax-free from the BRRRR method, and $472,000 in equity gain. So we're definitely going to get the equity side of this. $500K, I said I wanted for that. The profit is going to be tight, but I think we're going to get to that $1 million number. But today's episode, guys, I'm going to go over everything BRRRR. Does the BRRRR method still work today? Why I think it works today? My own BRRRR calculator that I use when I'm looking at properties, how I identify the correct ARV for my BRRRR, which is probably one of the most important things for it. Are you going to get that appraisal that you need to get to make your money at the end of it? What not to do in the BRRRR world, if you're buying for cash flow or appreciation or forced appreciation, and then also the exit strategies that you have that you need to make sure that you align before you purchase it. And we're just going to get deep into all of the guys. I'm going to share my screen probably at some point and show you guys. That way it's a little easier to see exactly what my BRRRR calculator is and the numbers that I literally run and show you right on the screen for me to make a purchase. Obviously, every market is going to be different. I'm only going to know and do what is in my market, the places that I know. I feel like if you're BRRRRing today, it's a lot harder. You need to stay in a market that you know. Guys, get on Zillow. You don't need MLS access. Does it help? Yes. Just become a master of your market. If a new house comes up in your zip code that you're trying to BRRRR in, you should know exactly what that house listed for. Everything. You should know, okay, hey, they're undervalued, they're overvalued. What are the comps? Again, we're going to get a lot into this, but those are the things that you should be starting off doing now, even if you're not ready to do it. Those are the things that you need to learn. I took 6 months of just learning that area before I bought a single property. But let me tell you, when a house got listed, I knew if it was undervalued, overpriced, a good deal, a bad deal, it wasn't going to rent for enough, and we're going to go through all of that. So let's just jump right into the first topic, why I think this market that we're in currently is still a great BRRRR market if your market supports it. Again, now there's some markets where it's not going to support it, but because every market's different, I'm not going to assume whatever market you're in, you just have to know your market. But what I think right now, in my opinion, is that right now is a great time to BRRRR. Reason being, there's a ton more buyers than there is sellers. That's no mystery. We're very much have high inventory in lots of places. So the buyers that are buying right now can be very, very picky. So you can pick up houses like as is houses for very good prices right now. Guys, I'm telling you, there's houses that I bought off the MLS that were listed at $180,000, and that was after a couple price drops. I bought it for $80,000, and that's on the MLS. Guys, if they're accepting your first offer, you offered too much. You should be offering way lower than that. So that's why I think, why I think the BRRRR method still works today is because you can buy stuff at a huge discount. Because before, if something just needed something cosmetic, here or there, people were going to buy it because the market was so hot that they didn't care if they had older cabinets or they had the wrong paint color. Right now, buyers are picking and choosing literally whatever they want. Because even in my market that's very slow and oversupplied right now, the good houses, like the houses that are redone, they're priced accordingly, and like the flips that are actually done well, they're still selling, 30, 40 days, way ahead of schedule. The houses that are sitting are the ones that are not flashy, they're poorly marketed, they have one iPhone picture, because the realtors there's not a million realtors anymore, or they just don't know what they're doing. A lot of people became realtors during COVID and stuff like that because you could take iPhone pictures and you'd have 15 offers the next day. It's not that market anymore. There's not as many buyers. And the buyers that are buying, they're smart and they're being picky. So your house that needs work is not going to sell right now. One, because a lot of flippers and stuff like that are scared to buy. Investors aren't buying as much. So that even leaves less competition for you, like for me. If they don't accept my offer first, okay. I'll see you in a couple months when your house is still sitting in the market after a couple price drops. I've done that multiple times. I've bought houses this year that have gone through 2 or 3 different realtors. I've had houses that I've bought that after the house expired off the MLS and the listing was expired, I went and slipped a note under their door because I think it was the realtor was gatekeeping my offer. And sure enough, I bought that house for cheaper than what I offered at when it was listed off market. All because the realtor wanted more commission or whatever her excuse, or she thought I was a low ball or whatever it is. If they need to sell, guys, they need to sell. It's that simple. If it's an as-is house, or right now I'm buying a lot of like estates, like people's homes that people pass away, they don't care. They just, hey, but typically the realtors that do estates and stuff like that, those houses are disgusting, overgrown grass. They don't want to deal with it. So they just put the price up super cheap. And even if it's priced accordingly, again, the buyer pool is so small right now. That's why I think right now is still a great time to BRRRR. Now, if you're in a hot market still, yeah, it's probably not going to work for you. But at least in the areas that I invest, the BRRRR method still works, and I'm living proof of that. $650K in profit. And guys, that's not like appreciation or forced appreciation or whatever. That's like, again, I'll break down the exact numbers of it, but that's the money I take home that I've gotten back after I pay myself back, myself back for the rehab, closing cost, everything. We're going to make $1 million tax-free this year on top of getting everything else back. So I'm going to get into my BRRRR calculator, guys. Bear with me. I know that's the one thing everybody wants to see is the BRRRR calculator. But let's talk about some do's and don'ts in the BRRRR world because we need to get that part out of the way first. Guys, you need to focus on what's actually going to raise the ARV. The days of buying something and then a year later or 6 months later it being worth 20% more. Like, I don't know how many people have messaged me like, hey, I'm going to buy a low down payment owner-occupied home with 5% down, and then a year from now, I'll refinance, get my money back out of it, and go to the next one. Guys, the days of that happening are done. Because you don't understand that even the highest LTV that you're going to get, like I get 80% cash out on my refinances, you only put 5% down. Guys, amortization for the first 5 years, you're pretty much just paying interest. It's very low. Say you have like a $300,000 loan. That first year, you might pay $2,000 towards your principal. So if you have a $300,000 loan and you need to get to 240 down to 240, that's 80% of 300,000. So say you bought, well, it's 300,000 purchase price, and you put, say 3.5 or 5% down. So you put 15 grand down. So now your loan balance is 285. If you even went and got an 80% cash out refinance on that house, you're still missing the $45,000, $50,000 that you didn't make up. The property is not going to appreciate that other 15% that you think it is, like it did during COVID and stuff like that. Another thing, you have to, like I said, you have to improve the property, especially if you bought it off the MLS. This is something that I've learned even with as-is property sales. Like you bought something at a great discount and they just needed to sell it because it was a divorce or something like that, and you got a smoking deal on it. The house needs to be different than what it was on the MLS because that appraiser is going to be able to see that MLS listing. And if he sees you bought it 6 months ago and didn't really do anything, and now you're trying to reassess it and reappraise it, even if you got it for a steal and the house is actually worth that higher number you want to get, if he can see that old MLS listing and nothing's changed, guys, your value is going to be very close to that old number because that's the best comp. It just sold. That's the best comp he's going to use. He's not going to pull a comp from another remodeled house. He's going to pull the comp that you just bought it for. That's why it's not going to, you have to force the appreciation. You have to do something to it. So when you're doing a BRRRR, you can't BRRRR an owner-occupied house unless you're doing a serious remodel, which you can do that. Because conventional loans, they're not like FHA. FHA loans, you can't have wood rot, you can't have all these things that won't qualify for that. But conventionally, they'll still let you get away with some stuff, like if you were going to remodel it and stuff like that, or say it's just old and outdated. There's tons of homes that I buy. They're not in bad shape. They just need to be completely remodeled. So that will work if you buy something as an owner-occupied loan. Kind of they call it like a live-in flip or whatever, but you can do a live-in BRRRR. That'll work. But you have to remodel it. Because again, he's going to see that old MLS listing, and if he goes in there and sees that you didn't do anything or all you did was paint the cabinets, you're not going to get that raised value that you want. I did make a video about how appraisals work. That's a great resource if you haven't watched that, to really see how an appraisal actually values and what actually increases your value. If you didn't add bedrooms and bathrooms, you didn't add square footage, you didn't replace the roof, the energy efficient items like the windows, your HVAC systems, guys, those are what raises the value. You can go in, put all new LVP flooring, paint everything inside, outside, paint your cabinets, do all that stuff. It's not going to raise the ARV of your property. It's not. Especially if he can see the old listing. And say the roof was already replaced, and you say, oh, but it's got a new roof, I should have a higher value than this house. No, he sees that you bought it with the new roof already on it. So he's already factored that in. So again, if you bought it on the MLS, you need to make changes to it, and they need to be visible changes. I'll even go to the point where I actually will paint the outside of the house. Even if the paint job is still good on the outside, I'll still change it. Because I want him to see when he pulls up that old MLS. This is only off the MLS. If it's off market, you don't have to worry about this stuff. But if it's on the MLS and he can see, I want him to see that it's physically changed. So when he walked in there, he's like, yes, this is a remodeled home. Why do we do that? Because when he goes and he pulls up the comps, he's going to look for the flips, the remodels, the houses that sold at the highest value because they were in the best condition. Because that's what he's going to comp it against. So that's a big tip there, guys. Don't buy something and just assume that a year later you're going to be able to refinance and get your money back out of it. A lot of people were doing that, and that's the reason why there's not a lot of people doing it, because they got burned. Oh, the BRRRR doesn't work. No, you're just doing it wrong. You're not buying deep enough, and you're not buying a big enough rehab. What I've learned this year is I want the bigger rehabs. Because even though the buyer pool is slim for the people buying those houses, it's even slimmer for the people taking on big BRRRRs, like our big rehabs. It's even the people doing that are even slimmer. I represent a buddy of mine, and he's buying 3-4 houses a month off the MLS doing BRRRRs. I'm doing the same thing. We're in the same market, and we're finding these on the MLS. I know because I'm the one that represents him, so I know he's doing it. There's just not a lot of people doing it in our market. So you need to find a place that has that. And the second thing, or the third thing about that is what are you buying it for? Are you buying it for the forced appreciation? Or are you buying it for cash flow? That's another thing, is if it's a buy or it's a not in today's market. Guys, there's not going to be a ton of cash flow with single family BRRRRs. Not with 8% interest rates. If you're doing it the way I am, where you're trying to get that top of the dollar ARV. When you're leveraged at 80% with an 8% interest rate, it's going to be very tough to cash flow. But that's right now, I don't really care because I'm trying to build as much capital as I can. I don't care if I break even on a property. I made $50,000, $60,000 tax-free up front. I am perfectly fine with doing that. People are like, well, you got to set aside for maintenance and CapEx. That's another reason why I buy big rehabs. The roof's new. The HVAC's been replaced. The water heater's been replaced. Those are your three biggest expenses that you're going to have to set aside for CapEx. Literally, the only expenses that I'm going to have is like if a plumbing leak happens or if I have tenant turnover. They have their new windows already. They have everything in the property is new. So if you buy those bigger rehabs, you're now getting a heavily improved property, which keeps your maintenance cost low. I have some properties that I BRRRR'd 2 years ago. I haven't had a single maintenance call on them yet because everything in the house was new. And I made $90,000 on that house, so I don't care if I'm breaking even for the last 2 years for it because I made $90,000 already. And we started profiting year 2 because I was able to raise rents because it's Section 8. That's a whole other story. But with Section 8, I've never had them deny a rental increase. So a lot of my houses, I do Section 8, even though they are in good areas and they are very nice homes. I find the right Section 8 tenants that are going to take care of the property. And that way when I go year 2, because I'm probably at break even year 1, but year 2, that's when I start cash flowing because I can raise the rent. And it's almost guaranteed. Well, I've never been declined, so it is at this point been 100% acceptance of my rental increase. And also, I don't think 8% interest rates are going to be around for a while. So that kind of goes down to what's your financing on the exit strategy. You need to have an exit strategy laid out. My exit strategy right now that's working for me is I'm getting a higher interest rate. It's 8% flat, but it's a commercial style DSCR loan. So it's a 5-year term amortized at 20 years. So that means it has a balloon payment of 5 years, but there's no prepayment penalty. Why is that? Why am I picking that loan product? One, because it's super cheap. I only pay 1 point origination and that's it. Which if you know anything about, if you go watch my episode about showing points and stuff like that, if you're getting a typical DSCR loan, you're typically going to be, even if you're experienced, you're going to be at least 1.5 to 3% or 3 points. And then there's all kinds of doc fees, underwriting fees. My lender doesn't have any of that. It's like the cleanest HUD you'll ever see. It's origination fee, which is 1 point, 1% of the loan, and then the appraisal, which is like $670. Only 2 things on the closing cost for HUDs. So now that saves me on the refinance side all those costs. But the reason why I'm doing it with no prepayment penalty, because if I did do a standard DSCR loan, they're almost always going to have at least a 3-year payment penalty that steps down. I think interest rates are going to be better in the next couple of years. So I don't want to be locked into that 7.5 or it's even, I have good credit, so it could be like a low 7 or 8. I think we're still going to be lower than that in a couple of years. So that's why I picked this loan product to stick with, because my exit strategy is I think the interest rates are going to go down. I don't want to lock in a 30-year mortgage and have a prepayment penalty on a DSCR loan. Now, obviously, if you go conventional, yes, you're probably not going to have a prepayment penalty. That would be better. But for me, I have to use a DSCR loan because I have too many properties. I wouldn't be able to go conventional. So it has to be a DSCR. So, all right, well, I know you guys want to get into it. So I'm going to set it up to share my screen. And that way you guys can see exactly what my BRRRR calculator is. And I'll talk more along the ways of, again, just more things. All right, so you guys should be able to see my screen here. My BRRRR calculator. Again, guys, this is how I do it. It does not mean it's going to work in your market. You could say that, all of this doesn't pencil out for me. I get it. But that just means you're not making a good enough deal. Guys, deals are made. They're not found. You have to make the deal. Like I said before, if they're accepting your first offer, you didn't offer low enough and you need to negotiate better. It's just that simple. So, example of a purchase for me. We're going to take the purchase price and then you're going to add up all your rehab, holding, closing cost, and then I want to make at least $50K profit on every BRRRR. So, and then equals to 80% of the ARV, because that's what I'm going to get for a cash out refinance. So to break it down a little easier so you can add some numbers, say the ARV is 300K. 80% of that, a bank's going to give me $240,000 if that a property appraises for $300,000. So I then want to take away my $50,000 that I want to make in profit. Say that the all-in cost of your rehab, holding, closing, everything was $90K. that means that I need to get the house for $100,000. Super simple, guys. That's just flat out numbers. But I'm going to take it one step farther of how you can really confirm this, because a lot of people jack up these steps because they either have their ARV wrong because they listened to some wholesaler, or they got their rehab cost wrong. Guys, in this market cycle, you should not be doing BRRRRs unless you have contractors lined up ready to go and you're familiar with this, you know your numbers, you know everything. The reason being is why I feel confident buying BRRRRs right now is because I'm making sure that my ARV is one, very recent, and if there is, I'm basically planning for a market to continue to decline. So I'm only buying these projects knowing I can turn them out in 4 to 8 weeks, max. So even if the market does slide, when I'm going to pull my comps, I'm not looking out, because an appraiser is only going to go 6 months back. I'm not looking at those. Say we're in June and a house sold in January, I'm already writing that one off as a comp, not to be used. Because say the remodel is July, August, we're done in September, I got to get it rented out. And then, well, if you're in September for the appraisal, he's not going to pull that comp from January. So I'm looking for super recent comps to when I purchased the property, because I know that I'm going to be out of that house within 4 to 8 weeks. And that's the only thing that matters for the BRRRR world. Even if the market is tumbling, it's not the stock market, it's not going to crash overnight. That's why I feel confident still buying BRRRRs if my ARV numbers are correct, which is, and I've never had a property come in an ARV lower because I'm super conservative with my ARVs, and you need to be. Don't over assume. I see people, they're like assuming that the price is going to be better when they remodel it. Guys, it's going the other way right now. So you really want to be on point with your numbers. So a little tips here of how to identify comps for your ARV I have listed out here, because there's a deal in our local market that just got put up by a wholesaler a couple days ago, and I really wanted to put it on here but I don't feel like putting anybody on blast and have them say it. But okay, so the house is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. Well, 4-bedroom, 2-bath house. It's 2,200 square feet. The comp that the wholesaler listed the price per square foot on was off of a 2.1.5, and it was 1,000 square feet. It doesn't matter that it was 2 streets over. That is not going to be a comp that the appraiser is going to use. So this just goes to show you, one, how green the wholesaler is, or they just really don't understand how appraisals work, which is very common, guys. Don't go by even a realtor telling you, hey, this is what the ARV is going to be. If a realtor is telling you that, you should know. Ask him, hey, print me out a CMA with these figures. Because this is how an appraiser is taught to look at it. And this is the parameters that they look at. Anything outside of these parameters, really, they're not going to use. Unless you're in like an area that's real rural and there's not a ton of comps. But if you're in an area that has plenty of recent sales, this is what they're going to go off of. They're not going to comp and adjust a 1,000 square foot house to your house that's 2,200 square feet just because it was 2 streets over. They're not going to do that. So that wholesaler is literally just blowing smoke up that house, and they're putting that number out there thinking, oh yeah, this is the ARV because this one sold at $185 a square foot. Guys, it's 1,000 square feet less than the house. It's not going to be used as a comp. Because what happens is an appraiser submits their appraisal to an appraisal department in the lending office, who also are appraisers. And they're going to be even stickler than the appraiser is going to be, because they're basically telling the bank, yes, this property is worth this, these comps are good, cut the check. They're not going to cut the check on a house that they know that even if the appraiser jacks up and picks a bad comp, they'll call the appraiser out. And they'll be like, nah, adjust this. We're not playing these games. So know your comps, guys. Big thing. So this is where I wrote out for you guys how to identify comps for ARV. This is what I do. I'll pull up the, now you don't have to have the MLS. I have the MLS and you're able to actually type these parameters in. You could just go on Zillow, which is what I used to do, look at the recently sold for that area, and yeah, you're gonna have to click through each individual home and you're gonna find the comps that are plus or minus 1 bedroom to your house, same with bathrooms, plus or minus 200 square feet. So that means say it's a 2,000 square foot house, you're gonna look for a range of 1,800 square feet to 2,200 square feet. Those are the only homes that you're gonna pull up. Don't go pull up a house that's 2,700 square feet, and don't go pull up a house that's 1,200 square feet, because an appraiser's not gonna use those numbers as comps. Plus or minus 20 years old. Age is real tough, especially in an area where I have a lot of older homes. There's also newer built homes, so that's kind of a crapshoot. But at the same time, year of make and model does matter. So if you have a 40s homes, like a lot of houses I buy in the 40s, you're gonna get comped against those older homes. You're not gonna get comped against a home that was built in 2000 when your home was built in 1940. So age does matter. And also you have to pay attention, this is what really people mess up. If it has a garage, does it have an ADU? All that stuff matters big time on your ARV. So if you're buying a house that has an ADU or you're adding an ADU, guys, a little tip, if it's detached, it is not gonna get the gross living area square footage as if it's directly attached to the house. What does that mean? That means that say you have like a mother-in-law suite or a 1-1 apartment that they built onto it or something like that or whatever, an ADU. If you have to walk through anywhere that's not attached to the house, whether it's a breezeway or if it's on the other side of the garage, it is not going to be counted into the gross living area square footage. It'll get a value, kind of like how a garage gets a value. And it's going to be more than a garage. But say you have a 500 square foot ADU and you have a 1,500 square foot main house, you're not going to get a price per square foot of 2,000 square feet. That additional detached unit is going to get a value to it for sure, but it's not going to be 2,000 square feet. Another big mistake that wholesalers make and realtors make and everybody makes, it's not a 1-to-1. I learned this the hard way. And I ordered 2 or 3 different appraisals thinking that, because I was told by a realtor that was not correct. Now, granted, recently that did change. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago is when they changed where if it's not directly attached to the house, it doesn't get the same value. So that's a big tip because that one got me once. And again, same thing. If it has a 2-car garage, do you not have a 2-car garage? Again, watch my appraisal video. It shows you that on the appraisals it'll show you, hey, they'll deduct 10 grand from your house if that house that they comped against had a garage and your house doesn't. 10 grand, gone right off the top. So those things do matter. And the distance depends on your market. I've seen where they don't have a ton of comps and they're going, into different zip codes to pull comps from. But then if you're in, a bigger market, say you're in Houston, yeah, they're not going to touch another zip code. They might even touch another neighborhood because there's so many comps in that neighborhood that they can use. They're not going to go that far. It's going to be like a quarter mile, whatever it is. So distance really depends on your market. And then again, you have to think of the exit strategy for your BRRRR. Like we were talking about before, I'm not so big on cash flow right now, obviously, because I think mortgage rates are going to come down. But you still need to make sure you can qualify for financing. I bought a couple properties from people because they didn't think about the financing side of it when they went and did this BRRRR and they weren't able to qualify for anything. So they got foreclosed on. Well, they stopped like mid-project basically. So you have to run your numbers. If you're going to use a DSCR loan, you need to shoot for a 1.2 DSCR number. Guys, it's called the Ballpark app. It's free off of the Apple Store. It will literally show you, you put in your price for the house, your down payment, your interest rate, your amortization schedule, all your expenses, if you have HOA fees, everything, taxes, insurance, and it will spit out a DSCR number. Most lenders want to see a 1.2 DSCR number. So if you're buying a house that doesn't cash flow, you're not going to be trying to use a DSCR loan to refinance out of it to go to the next property. If you have a negative DSCR number or it's a 1 flat, it's going to be hard for a lender to lend to you. So I put that in there because that can definitely catch some people. Make sure that your property cash flows afterwards. And on the rehab side of it, because a lot of people ask me rehab questions, guys, that's not rocket science, but this is the template that I use. That, and again, I can spit all these numbers in my head just because I've been doing it so much that I know exactly what these costs are, because they're pretty much fixed cost. If I'm replacing a 3-ton HVAC system inside and outside, I already have that number set for my guy because it's the 12th one we've done this year. So kind of already know. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that's not going to be fixed, like flooring. It's a 2,000 square foot house. Okay, I know it's going to be roughly 2,200 square feet of flooring needed to floor that house. Okay, what's 2,200 times the price of what I pay for flooring? Put it in there. Labor. You should have a general estimate of what your labor bid is going to be. Roof. Okay, it's a 1,400 square foot home. Last one cost me $7,000 to do. I'm putting it in $7,000. And then in the end of that, I'll tally all that up and I'll make sure that it fits these numbers. And that's how I use my BRRRR calculator to do it. And I'll eventually, and it gets tracked like here. I think I have it here. Yeah, so these are actually all the BRRRRs that I did for this year. So these would be the completed ones. So this one I purchased for 76.5. My budget was 60. Went $3K over budget. My ARV with the property I thought was going to be 285. The appraisal came in at 300. Again, I'm always conservative with my appraisals. So that was $100K tax-free profit on that one house. The next one, purchased it for $95,000. This one was off the MLS. Budget was $40,000. Went over 2K. I thought the ARV was only 245. It came back at 282. $88,000 profit. Again, another one off the MLS. Purchased it for 80, 40K in. We were over by 8,000. 225 was what I thought it was going to be. Appraised at 241, 65K profit. Again, these are all the BRRRRs. And then I even have the ones that we haven't completed yet. And you'll see that I put on there. I bought it for 80. My budget for that one's 55,000. I think it's going to appraise for 225,000 when we're done. And then so on and so forth. And what I'll do is once I find good comps for those ones that haven't finished yet, I'll literally save them. So that way, if the appraisal comes back and I don't like it and I need to contest it, I already have these comps lined up. Hey, this is the comps that should be used, and I can contest the appraisal. So it's possible, guys. You can BRRRR in this market, I'm telling you. So, but that's all for sharing my screen for right now. I'll stop this for right now. You really need to learn on focusing on the appraisal. Everything is the appraisal. Your rehab, everything should be driven to the appraisal. From your purchase price to the time that property gets appraised, you should be thinking of that appraisal in mind. How can I add bedrooms? How can I add bathrooms? How can I make this the highest and best use for this property? Hey, is converting this porch into livable square footage going to raise my ARV? How much is that going to cost in my rehab? And then move those numbers around. Guys, it's all about the appraisal. All about the appraisal. And as far as finding or identify the BRRRR areas, a couple pointers that I have for that, guys, you want to find the crappiest, dilapidated houses on the best streets with properties that have similar year homes that are remodeled. Like my bread and butter area here in town, they're almost all older homes. But it's a good area and it's close to downtown, close to the water. People want to live there. So there's plenty of people that have bought those old homes and remodeled them, or flippers have done it and sold. So you have solid comps. That's another thing, going back to the comps. You need to have good comps, guys. If all the comps in your areas none of them are remodeled, you need to match whatever those comps are. Because don't waste the money of doing a high-end remodel and you're not going to be able to get those comps because there's nothing in that area. So those areas will work too. Say you want to buy more for cash flow and not so much for the high appraisals to make money or whatever it is. You can buy in the lower quality areas and just not do as big of a rehab. Maybe find something off market and just get it at a deep, deep discount. Guys, the numbers I'm showing you, they don't have to be with a big rehab. If you find somebody that needs to sell and you can get, because I've done it where it's been basically a turnkey property, Like, I didn't need to do anything to it. And I was still able to meet that same spread, even though I didn't do the rehab, just because I got it off of Craigslist and a guy just, one, didn't know what it was worth. Two, he just needed to sell it. He needed the cash. And since it wasn't on the MLS, I didn't have to worry about changing all those things I was talking about from before, because the property hasn't been seen by the appraiser, and it wasn't just purchased 3 months ago. Well, he can't see that, because in Texas it's a non-disclosure state, so he can't see what I paid for it. He might be able to see that there's a deed transfer, but he won't be able to see the sale of it. So that's another, I bought, like I said, turnkey properties that were recently renovated, and the guy just, he needed money, needed to get out of it. And I literally bought it one day, cleaned it up, put a tenant in it, and then I think like 2 weeks later I was refinancing it. And that's another reason why I use the lender now, because you probably are questioning my time frame. There are lenders that don't have a seasoning period. If you don't know what a seasoning period is, some banks and lenders will require you to own a property, or they call it like a stabilization phase, for like 6 months or a year. That's very typical for like commercial lending and multifamily. You're pretty much always going to have a seasoning period, because they want to see it stabilized and they want to be able to see that you've collected rent and stuff like that. My lender does not require that. One of the things I actually do for the appraisal, especially when I do big remodels, I'll make sure the appraisal gets done before a tenant moves in. Why do I do that? I'll get them to sign a lease and everything, take their deposit, have the lease set up, but I'll make sure that I time it where that appraisal gets done before they move in, because I want that appraiser to walk in and be wowed. And with every single, I think I have one in here. With every single meeting that I go meet the appraiser, I have a sheet of everything we did. Because they're not going to be able to see everything. They're not going to see that you put spray installation. They're not going to see that the electrical's new. They're not going to be able to see that stuff. So I write everything out that we did. All the square footage we added. Because guys, I'm not supposed to, but some of them are lazy. They're supposed to measure every single inch of that home and make sure the square footage is correct. It's literally one of the biggest things with appraisals. But I've seen before where they don't. And they didn't notice that I did an addition and it wasn't on the CAD yet, and they didn't count it in there. So I literally had to go reorder the appraisal and contest the appraisal, because it was completely, the bedroom that I added was not on his little thing, wasn't there. He didn't do a sketch, or an accurate sketch, I should say. He went on the freaking county's website and pulled the square footage, which was dead wrong. And that's why that appraiser no longer gets used by that lender. But he did it, and that obviously killed the value of the home. But it was a very easy contest, because I went and just paid for another appraisal sketch, and it came back 275 square feet higher. Oh, I wonder why. Oh yeah, because the addition that I paid to get built onto it. So again, I literally, everything, single thing. If we're changing out fixtures, if we're changing out faucets, if we're changing everything, I put everything on that piece of paper. Plus, guys, usually what happens, what appraisers do is they'll go out, they'll have 1 or 2 days a week where they'll go take all the pictures and do all the measurements and do everything down. And then the other days, they're like their office days. So that way they're not constantly going back and forth every day. So they'll, like in one day, they'll knock out all the pictures, all the walkthroughs, everything they have to do. And then the other days, they're in their office. So it could be 3-4 days before he writes that report and he saw 7 other houses that day. He's not going to remember the condition of your house. But guess what? If he has that little sheet that you gave him, he'll now remember, oh yeah, they were quartz countertops that he did. He did all this work. That's a huge, ever since I started doing that, I have yet to have a single appraisal not come in at least 10,000 higher than what my ARV was. Ever since I started doing that. That's a massive tip. But that's pretty much the gist. I can't really think of anything else. I could talk about BRRRRs all day, but to sum it up, guys, still a great time to BRRRR. You can get great deals. You just need to make the deal. If they're accepting your offer, the first one you lowball them with, it wasn't low enough. I mean, is there a time that they're just that desperate they're going to accept anything? Yeah, it could happen. Actually, I shouldn't say that, because the last one they did accept my first offer. But that's because it was like stupid low. But again, it was an estate property, turned out of kids. They had no idea what it was worth. They just needed it gone. I could close in a week. and they didn't even question it. So I guess that can happen. But anyway, guys, I'm still trying to burn my way to $1 million in profit in 2025. We're more than halfway there. We got more projects going on than I've ever had at one time. And yeah, the BRRRR is very much still alive. So if you guys have any questions about today's episode, feel free to shoot me a DM. Please subscribe, like. I love the feedback that I've been getting from you guys. I'm a very much an introverted person. Most people don't think that, but I am. It's kind of cool to see that it is impacting people. I have random people, I have no idea who they are, DMing me, hey man, I was literally in the same retirement strategy thing that you went through in the Border Patrol, and this is crazy to think that you're doing that. Like, that's crazy to think that somebody else who I had no idea came across their feed, and now they're watching me describe real estate to them. It absolutely blows my mind. But please, guys, like, subscribe. I'll catch you all.